Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope we're all well and thank you very much for tuning in. In today's video, we're going to take a look at FSLTL. This is a brand new freeware AI traffic add-on for Microsoft Flight Simulator. It is similar to other AI traffic add-ons currently out for the sim, but it does have some really cool features that I think you're really going to love. I have been working with FSLTL for the last few months, helping them test the project, and they've made some fantastic progress getting this into a good state, ready for release, despite there being some interruptions due to the ongoing crisis in Ukraine and Russia. My thoughts go out to those who are affected. FSLTL is new for Microsoft Flight Simulator and any sim for that matter. So in this video, I'll give you a brief overview of the add-on and then we'll take a look at the setup process, setting up with VATSIM, and how to set up and run the standalone injector. So what does FSLTL bring to the table then? Along with providing a large library of aircraft models and liveries that have all been reworked for Microsoft Flight Simulator, FSLTL is using a standalone injector that pulls real-time data from Flight Radar 24, which then gets injected into your sim alongside optional parked aircraft, which is also based on real-world historic data, all with the correct call sign, livery, aircraft, and at the correct gate also. This gives an incredibly realistic picture of a given airport and really amps up the immersion factor, especially if you're flying with live weather and time. Further, each model has a custom Wise sound set, native effects like heat blur, contrails, and has all the lights and animations as you'd expect. FSLTL will also work with the stock live traffic system in the sim along with model matching on VATSIM. The package even ships with a VMR file and some virtual airline liveries, so VATSIM users are pretty much ready to go out of the box. Pretty cool. The VMR file included is also updated with each release of the base models for FSLTL, so you don't even really need to do anything on that front if you are a VATSIM user. Do be aware, however, that whilst FSLTL does make good on some of the Microsoft Flight Sim AI traffic system quirks, there are some issues and limitations that still exist, which are unfortunately outside of third-party developers' control, so do bear this in mind. On top of this, FSLTL has a super simple installation process via the fly-by-wire installer, which many of you are probably already familiar with, making things far simpler and easier to understand than another AI traffic add-on we've covered here on the channel. That being said, the purpose of this video is to run through the process from start to finish and get you up and running and show you every feature of the injector. So before doing anything, I will mention that whilst it may be possible to have FSLTL installed at the same time as other AI traffic add-ons, it is worth considering removing anything else you've got in your community folder with regards to AI traffic, temporarily just to avoid any confusion in the setup. So, to begin with, if you don't already have the fly-by-wire installer, you will need to download it, and I've provided a link in the video description below to the FSLTL website where you can download the installer. Don't worry if you don't want to use the fly-by-wire A32NX or the SaltySim 747. The fly-by-wire installer is essentially just a launcher, a little bit like Orbex Direct or Contrail or something similar to those apps. For existing users, it's simply just a case of launching the fly-by-wire installer, no update required. Once you've opened or installed the fly-by-wire installer, click on the FSLTL icon in the sidebar and this will give you the option to install the base models and the injector. I'll also mention that when updates are released for this add-on, they're handled through this app too. All users should download the base models, however, downloading the injector is really down to your personal preference. If you're after the Flight Radar 24 traffic, make sure you do download the injector. Otherwise, if you're only wanting to use the models for VATSIM model matching or to use with the stock Microsoft Flight Simulator live traffic system, you don't necessarily need to bother with the injector at all. That being said, you can still configure the injector for static aircraft only, which may be useful if you're on VATSIM and it's pretty quiet. It just adds a little bit of life to an airport. Stick around for the rest of the video to see how to set this up. For VATSIM users, to access the included VMR file, once the installation is completed within the fly-by-wire installer, make sure you have base models selected, click on About, and then Package Files. In this directory, you'll find the VMR file that you can add to your model matching rules within vPilot. You could also navigate using your Explorer to the package for FSLTL within your community folder. And that's more or less everything with regards to installation. Like I said, super simple. Leave the fly-by-wire installer open for now, and let's have a look at getting set up with the Injector. So next, go ahead and launch Microsoft Flight Simulator. Once the sim is loaded, there's a couple of important settings we need to check before moving on. So go to Options, then General Options, and click Traffic on the left-hand side. For the best results when using the FSLTL Injector, make sure you have aircraft traffic type set to off. It's really just a case of having real-time online traffic or the FSLTL Injector running at the same time. You'll also need to make sure you have the ground aircraft density slider set to 0. This is something that seemed to trip a few people up with the setup after watching my AIG setup video, and I can see why. It may be tempting to turn this one up, and in fact setting this slider to anything higher than 0 will show parked aircraft on the ground, which it will pull in part from FSLTL or any other AI traffic packages you have installed. However, the way the sim does this is it allocates aircraft just completely randomly, so you won't have the right aircraft at the right gates or the right liveries showing in the right areas of the world, etc, etc. So do make sure you have that set to 0. The FSLTL Injector will inject realistic park traffic for you once we launch it. With that set, we can load a flight at your airport of choice. I'm going to go with Dublin, in this case, Echo India Delta Whiskey, and we can get started with the Injector. Once you're loaded in, go back to the fly-by-wire installer, select the FSLTL Injector, and to the right hand side of the window you can click Start. Be aware that the status here won't change to running until we've actually started the injection from within the Injector. You can also launch the Injector directly from the FSLTL Traffic Injector package that's been installed into your community folder. You can easily access this by clicking About and then Package Files within the fly-by-wire installer, or by navigating to your community folder using Windows Explorer, whichever you prefer. And in this package, you can launch fsltl-trafficinjector.exe. You could also set yourself a shortcut or pin this application to your taskbar from here if you so wish by right-clicking on the application in the usual way. Whilst we are here, do note you can also find some documentation for the Injector within this folder by opening the README text document. I recommend giving that a read through to learn in more detail about what the Injector does and some limitations with regards to the AI traffic system in the sim. Once you have opened the Injector, you'll be presented with a window that looks a lot like a Windows command prompt. This is the Injector, and you will notice it first confirms some information with regards to the sim and current Injector settings. You don't necessarily need to alter these settings initially, and you can simply press Enter on your keyboard to start the injection. When the Injector is running, this window will also give you feedback on what aircraft are currently being injected into the sim. But for the purpose of this tutorial, let's have a look at the available options here. You can restart this process at any time by closing and relaunching the Injector. So initially type Y on your keyboard and press Enter, and this will prompt the Injector to run through each of the settings available to you. The first couple of options are with regards to active aircraft that will be spawned into the sim. These are the aircraft that will be pulled from Flight Radar 24 and interact with the sim like other users would do. First up, we have IFR aircraft. I recommend a setting of somewhere between 40 and 80 for most systems, but you can play with this figure to work out what gives you the best performance. In pretty much all cases, I wouldn't recommend anything above 100, as you will be starting to get very close to the upper limits of what the sim will accept in terms of injected aircraft and traffic. I'm going to go with 80 here, so typing 80 and pressing Enter on my keyboard. Do note that also if you are happy with any current setting, you can also just hit Enter on the keyboard without typing anything at all. Next we have VFR aircraft, and you may want to tweak this depending on whereabouts in the world you are flying, but generally speaking, you're going to have a fair amount less VFR than IFR traffic. I'm going to keep the current setting of 10. The next option is additional parked aircraft, and these are aircraft that are just static, they don't move, but they are realistically placed and liveried and based on real-world data. It's possible to set a value here between 0 and 10 for this. The figure that you insert here is not the actual number of parked aircraft you will see on the ground. Think of it more like a slider between 0 and 100%. I'm going to go with 3 in this case. These 3 options give you some flexibility on how to set up the injector for different scenarios and to suit your system specification. For example, if you wanted to set up just parked aircraft, say if you're flying on VATSIM, you could set your IFR and VFR traffic to 0 and add some park traffic just to add a little bit more life to the airport. This means you won't have any AI traffic moving around on the ground or in the air, confusing things with regards to who is a real user and who isn't. Though, much like static aircraft included with any airport scenery, it is still possible for other VATSIM users to potentially spawn in on top of any of the parked aircraft. The next option is blocked aircraft removal time. This will remove any aircraft that gets stuck in any way, whether by flying circles in the sky or lost on the apron. This is essentially something FSLTL has built into the injector to work around some of the limitations of the Microsoft Flight Sim AI traffic system. You have to enter this in multiples of 30 seconds, so I'm going to go with 60 seconds in this case. And finally, the last option is for an API key that you can generate on flightplandatabase.com. This is entirely optional, but adding one will help the injector create more realistic flight plans for the injected AI traffic. You can do this by going to flightplandatabase.com and creating an account, which I'm not going to show here. But once you have done so, click on your username in the top right, click on Settings, scroll down to API Access and create new key. A new key will appear above the button you've just clicked, and then you can copy and then paste that into the injector with Ctrl and V. That's the final option, so hit enter and then the injection should start. After around 30 seconds, you'll start to see aircraft appear in the sim. Leave your injector running whilst you fly to have your skies and airports filled with AI aircraft. You do not need to run through those settings every time you start the injector. Everything will be saved, and on your next flight, if you want to carry on with your current settings, just press enter on your keyboard after launching the injector and you are good to go. I'll mention that whilst we are bringing in data from Flight Radar 24, once the aircraft has been injected into the sim, its startup, pushback and the rest of its flight are all handled by the sim itself, so therefore you shouldn't expect the picture in the sim to match Flight Radar 24 exactly at any given time. However, it does do a pretty good job. Once the injector is running, you can use the new menu bar icon for FSLTL, which will give you a couple of controls. The buttons themselves are fairly self-explanatory, but for completeness, one button is essentially a restart button. It will delete all active and parked aircraft that have been injected into the sim and rerun through the injection process. And the second button will delete nearby aircraft to your aircraft. So should you find yourself coming on to final and there's an aircraft in your way and you want to just get rid of them, you can press this button and it will get rid of any aircraft that are close to you. So that just about wraps up everything for the setup of FSLTL. FSLTL is a project that will be continually developed and improved upon, so the release you see here is what we felt was at a level that was ready for the public. So you can expect improvements to the injector as time goes on, as well as additions to the model library. You can find a list of some of the major known bugs in the pinned comment below. If this video helped you, please do hit the thumbs up button, as this really helps the channel out alongside helping the community find this video easier too. So some of my personal closing thoughts. FSLTL is a fantastic addition to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I think what I'm going to do personally is stick with that only for the foreseeable future, as it does cover the large majority of cases for VATSIM flying, which is the main type of flying that I do. The package itself is a little bit more focused and less bloated in terms of having lots of excess airlines and liveries that you practically never see in the real world. So it is taking up a lot less space on my hard drive, and I do find the repaints, the effects, and especially the sounds a lot better quality than other AI traffic add-ons currently available. I really love the ease of installation and update process too. The fly-by-wire installer has a really nice interface and loads up nice and quick. Obviously the add-on is free, so you can go out there and judge for yourself. You can download it right now through the fly-by-wire installer. Please do let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have any questions or feedback on the add-on, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Also, you can head over to the FSLTL Discord, which is linked in the video description below. Or feel free to drop in on one of my live streams here on YouTube, where I'll be happy to answer any questions I can live on stream. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next one. A big shout out and thank you for your support to all of my current channel members. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye bye for now.